Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a special edition of the Artificery podcast. Why is it a special edition?
Because we're going to be
We
family
have
friendly.
some previews. What'd you say, Wyatt?
Because we're being family friendly.
We're being family friendly. Uh, yes, we have to be
As
family friendly for this
as
podcast.
promised on the last episode, dice chance cubes. That's the special. Thank you.
Oh, that's special. We're just showing the chance cubes. It's done.
Can we have other product placement on this special episode?
Get your chance cubes at Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, they're actually like from Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty awesome.
It's probably safe then.
I know, probably safe. I want those that are official. So, yeah, we've been lucky enough to be blessed with spoilers. So, we're going to release this special episode version of the spoilers just to talk about them. As usual, I am joined with Garrett, aka Zero Hour, Nick, other Nick, aka Taxter, and Wyatt is back, aka Kylos Bren, to give us his hot takes on all the stuff he doesn't know. So,
I think this
it'll be
brings my batting
fantastic.
average up to almost 50%.
I don't know. You do
Yeah.
pretty good. Yeah. Your takes are fire. That's why we bring you back.
So hot right now.
So yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it, right for everybody, what everybody wants to see with our first spoiler. First spoiler is a unit. It's a very cool unit. It is the 7th Fleet Defender. This is a 3-cost space unit. It is in Cunning and Villainy. Has 3 attack, 2 HP, Imperial Vehicle Fighter, and it is shielded. Uh, Garrett, tell me about this card. What do you think?
Awesome. It's a space unit which we don't have a ton of. It's got shielded. It's a 3/2, and it's Imperial, so it gets boosted. It's awesome. I love this card. I love the 7th Fleet. Who's the commander of the 7th Fleet? Um, not anyone we have. It's just good. Like, we needed cunning units. We wanted I wanted more space, and it's the shielded on this is fantastic. I love this card.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Wyatt, what do you think? Do you agree?
I mean, we've already established that it dies to Count Dooku, so no, it seems solid. I was trying to run quick math on it, and if you play it, get initiative, and the shield is there, you can reasonably hit something, at equal cost off the board, or potentially trade way up with it if you go for the double attack, where you sack the shield the first time and then get actually use it to close out later. So it seems like it can hit targets across multiple rounds as large as 6 health, which is pretty great. And it's I don't know, it's got good art. I wish all the salvos were firing on it, but I will accept 4 of 6 salvos firing from its wings.
That's why it's only 3 attack. If the other 2, it would be like 4 or 5. So that's how they
Also,
I feel like there's a joke in here about Thrawn only using 2 TIE fighters instead of 6.
Instead of 6.
Other Nick, do you have any additional thoughts?
This ship would make Thrawn proud. That's all I gotta say. It looks great. It's gonna trade with. I feel like it's gonna 2-for-1 anything in that low cost range area, unless they get buffed by a wing leader or something like that. But it's nice to see something that can actually kill the A-wing, at 3 mana or three resources. That's great. I'm excited to play this if I end up playing Yellow Villain at all. But
I like that it has built-in protection against the interceptor.
yeah, that too.
Play the interceptor
Because it's better
do
than the
do
interceptor.
your damage to my shield.
I think it's
Sabotage just
thematic
looks
that it
better
beats
and
the
better.
A-wing. Where'd the defenders for beating A-wings? I can't remember.
I
The
mean,
defenders were for beating everything.
Yeah.
The defenders
Beating everything.
were the counter to why you don't need a Death Star. If you have a crap load of these defenders, you do not need a Death Star. That was essentially Thrawn's master plan. So
If you give all of your basic shock fighters, I don't know, a means to defend themselves, you're suddenly not susceptible to everyone who has shields. Looking at you, Empire, and
True.
your weird budgeting choices.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with everyone says here. This is a really good card. I do find it funny. I feel like this is an aggro card, and like shielded is a really good aggro keyword. Like, and we kind of saw this with the blue rare base, vigilance rare base, security complex, where it gives a unit a shield. And I, as we've talked about it before, I've been playing Sabine with that base because in aggro, it's fun giving like one of your aggro units a shield, because like usually the most important thing that like aggro needs to do is to like get its units to survive to the point that it attacks, and then it can apply like combat effects, play surprise strikes or whatever. And shield is a good way to just make sure that your units aren't removed off the board before you get that really useful swing in aggro decks. But I can see it in other decks too, being like something that can
I
control
mean,
space.
shields just seem good all around. I mean, I understand your point with aggro, but I also think non-aggro still likes shields too.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, I think like the only like the downside I think in shields and like more control situations, the more I've played stuff, is that they're little you gotta have to try to be like proactive with them. Like we've seen stuff like the infiltrator, whatever, what was I can't remember the name of the upgrade, but
Infiltrator skill or something like that.
yeah, the one that gives saboteur. Like
mhm.
you're asking for ways to like get your shields blown up if you aren't proactive with them. Mr. Wyatt, you have something to say?
Yeah. So I was actually also thinking about Saboteur, but and I'll say this is part of me adjusting. I'm only going to reference this game by name in this podcast. But I have played a previous Final Fantasy, or not Final Fantasy, a Fantasy Flight game that uh, was Star Wars themed and had dice involved and maybe cards. And in that game, the color coding really described archetypes. And so it's still strange for me to see a yellow card and conceive of it differently than how I would in that game. And so the moment I look at this card, like again, the fact that it can fit aggro, that it's not like a pirate ship or a marauder ship or used by the Huts, but this is just like a clever imperial ship is a change in like a theme and also intent for me. So I think I was expecting yellow to be a different thing than it is based on the cards we're seeing, and I'm very excited by yellow. Like when I think of I want to play like a lot of imperial space units, I suddenly feel very at home saying and I want to do that in a yellow shell.
I think
Yeah, and
that's a
I
good
think
point.
that'll catch a lot of people off guard. Like I've seen some speculation online where people are like, will like Imperials be something that's in yellow? Because like we've seen Bosk in yellow and Boba Fett in yellow and like all these underworld type things in yellow. But like I think that the messaging from like FFG's like official streams has been pretty clear. Like the colors aren't segmented like based on like what the type of character is. Like you can very much have a cunning Luke, a vigilance Luke, an
Mm-hmm.
aggressive Luke,
They're
and it's
very
going to be the
fluid.
same thing. Yeah, across the board, you're going to have Imperials that are cunning, just as well as like you'll have I'm sure we're going to see underworld stuff that's like I think I said on like one of the discords, like it wouldn't surprise me to see like the crime syndicate like leaders being in green in command, and that would be thematic because their
Yeah,
command like they're more than, it's not just an under like yellow isn't an underworld color, it's the cunning like tricky color, and green is like the command organized structure color, and like underworld stuff could easily fall in that just as well as anything else.
Yeah, that's so
and like,
interesting.
yeah, I
Black
don't think
Sun
of
could be green.
Vader. I don't think of Vader as command, but I could see him being command because he's the leader of Black Squadron. Like he
Totally.
could be command. Like it's not. It's cool. Like I like that it's very fluid.
Yep. All right, let's move on to our last of our two spoilers. Yes, we do have a second one, which is very cool. The second spoiler is another unit, another Imperial unit in yellow. As we were talking about it, it is the ISB agent, which seems like a great thematic something to be in yellow. He's a ground unit, one cost. He is in cunning and villainy, like we said. He's got one power, 3 HP, and he has a win plate ability. You may reveal an event from your hand. If you do, deal 1 damage to a unit. That's any unit, a ground unit, space unit, whatever. Your own unit, as we know that sometimes matters with Imperials. Uh, Nick, I'll throw it to you. Tell me what you think about the ISB agent.
It's an interesting one. I don't know where it's gonna fall into play. It doesn't seem as universally like, oh man, I really want to play this like the TIE Defender, and I don't know if that's just because I really like Thrawn. Um, but I mean, as a one It's a 1-drop that can ping something. I mean, it just depends on how much 1 health units are out there on the enemy side that you're going to want to be playing this. I mean, otherwise it doesn't do a ton of damage on its own. It's a fine body, but it's neither a trooper nor an officer. So while it is Imperial and it can get buffed by Veers, it doesn't get any of the other kind of like side synergies you might try to be going with that as well. Like officer being like a thing to turn on the Royal Guard at this point.
Yeah, can't
So
tag buff him.
That one
You're not
damage
a
can kill a
trooper.
shield, though.
Yeah, that's
True.
yeah,
exactly
the one
what I
damage
was
should pop a shield.
You can also
I think it's
combo it with Vader, with Vader's leader ability to do 2 damage.
yeah that he's so cheap that early, and that is probably a really good point. If you start second, like if you know, because you think you know whether you're going second before you mulligan, right?
Yes, yeah, you
Yes.
roll
So
and
so if you know
determine first.
that and you see that in your hand, like, and you're playing Vader, that does work pretty well. Granted, I don't know if you're playing Vader with yellow at this point. That is the one color I haven't seen like anyone play Vader with for the most part.
There's not enough for it yet. Well, I
Yeah,
think we'll
so
see
And
more.
I mean that's true. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool tool, and I don't know how much play it's going to see, but it's common. Probably do some work and limit it at some point.
sure. Wyatt, you have any other additional insights on ISB agent?
Yeah, so the costume on this card is actually really interesting. It's pretty great for a resource, and at the same time could range from like you want a couple to you never play it. Which is interesting. So just looking at the whole idea of like, yeah, you can pop a shield, which already is pretty flexible. It can hit anything for one, which is both really good and also not that much. But also, there's going to be plenty of times where I think somebody wouldn't necessarily expect that you're going to manufacture one for one a cost, especially with a body involved, which makes it kind of interesting. Um, it opens up the possibility of openers, I suppose, where you're able to both play a 1-cost unit and a 1-cost other thing, and I don't know how valuable that will be, but it's interesting to have that compared to most of what I've seen, which seems to be like, Windmill Slam a 2-cost unit. It's also pretty interesting because if you go second and your opponent does play something with 2 health at the start, you can always target that thing, and suddenly it's 1 damage is enough to trade. So it's just got a lot of flexibility, which again seems really, really good. And like I wouldn't expect to see 3 health and the 1 damage and the ability on a 1-cost body. So that's what I mean when I say it's pretty great for its cost. But at the same time, it's too small at any point later in the game unless you have the right synergies around it to be an interesting and playable character. So I mean, I guess it's like good early, or it's just a really simple mana battery later. I don't know.
I don't know. I think that's all fair. Garrett, you already shared some insight, but do you have any other things?
I mean, he's got great sideburns, first of all.
Yeah, let's talk about
Um,
that for a second. Great side.
Pretty
I
good.
just I think it's a cool card. Like I think it's a pretty good early game, and maybe even into the mid game, and late you're probably resourcing it. But if your opponent's shielding up, that's an easy way to just get rid of the shield before you hit with something big. So I
Mhm.
mean, it's got uses. I think of the two that we got, I think I like the defender more.
Yeah,
But I think we'll see this played. Like you can drop this and a TIE fighter round one, and you're good to go. Like that's a strong start, and especially
it
if
is really
they're
weird
dropping
though.
a tie.
It really is just like bad if it's the only 1-drop you have and you're going first, right? Because you're just like, well, do I pass? I mean, maybe you do. Maybe just pass as your first action
Yeah,
at
I
I
that
don't
think you
point,
think
but
can
then
so.
you're
argue both.
conceding initiative. There's a lot of like weirdness with that.
I
Yeah,
mean, there
no,
could be
I
stuff we'll
think
see
the
later too.
yeah, I was gonna say the one interaction I think we haven't mentioned yet is with Tarkentown, the base. So yeah,
Ooh,
you can
yeah,
get
that's a
True.
good
shield,
Yeah.
but
point.
you can get that damage on a unit to Tarkentown it. I don't know if that's enough to
I
help,
like that a
but
lot because that's one of the things that sets Tarkentown apart for me as being like I think it's my least favorite of the four bases.
Also, if you're playing Vigilance, this plus the Death Trooper is 3 damage out of your hand. Like that's also solid. Like I think by itself, I think it's fine. I think it's a card that you're going to be comboing with something else more often than not, which is fine. It costs 1. Like
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's always like a little premium on like these kinds of effects that can hit ground or space, even with it being small. Just it can go wherever you might need it. Um, like you said, with Tarkin Town, like maybe you don't have your open fire to hit the space unit, but like this could be the answer to like a space unit to make sure you can get them off the table, even though it's not super impressive. Though I do like, I question, at least with a lot of the decks I've seen, like how many events do you have to run to make this consistent?
Guarantee
I
one in
think,
your hand.
yeah, because I think there is a point where like, I mean, yellow has some really strong events that we've seen. You know, shoot first, surprise strike, um, other stuff, waylay. Like, there's a lot of events in yellow that I think it's probably going to be the event color, but like this card's really bad if you don't have events. I think if you just don't ever hit one, I don't know.
I mean, that's true.
It's still not terribly statted for missing. I'm with you. It's good when you hit, but I think going back to the art for just a second, I've noticed that there's absolutely no definition in the teeth, and it appears that he has only one upper tooth. And just
Just the
like
one
I don't
tooth.
know, a single gum cutter is really frightening to me. But
True. Fair. Anyway, on that note, just to keep this short and sweet for a spoiler episode, we're gonna call it. Thanks everyone for joining in and seeing our spoilers, and I think we'll still be back later in the week with a regular
Yeah.
regular podcast, talk about this, what's coming up, and we probably won't release this until after the stream, like for people that are catching it from FFG. So well, later in the week we'll probably have a regular episode still to talk about like all the cool spoilers that are still yet to come this week. So
there you go.
with that, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for being spoiled with us.